What's up guys, that is here and welcome to another video. Finally, the final balance changes for Arcade Edition were revealed. So let's check out all those buffs and nerfs for all the characters. But before that, let's check also other features and options added and the overall balancing. First, the frame advantage in color. Actually, this option was already discovered if you check out my previous video. A guy who bought a Street Fighter 5 copy and it turned out to be Arcade Edition. And he found this option in training mode, so it will be easier now for you guys to study and step up your game. In the attack data display, you can now view each action's frame data. You can now turn on frame advantage in color to determine when each action has advantage. If the character is in blue, then they have advantage. If they are in red, they have disadvantage. Fighter ID and home change. As of January 16, you will be able to change your fighter ID and the home flag using either 200k fight money or real money for $9.99 in the store. I think the price is pretty expensive for the fight money, also for the real money, and it seems like only you will have one chance on changing your fighter ID and the home flag. It says here one purchase on the fighter ID and home change ticket will allow you one access opportunity where you can change your fighter ID and home once. Even if you change only the fighter ID or only the home during this access, it will still consume the ticket and count as an instance. So if you want to change both, please change them and at this time. So yes, you have only one chance to change your fighter ID and your home flag. So you have to be really careful with this, as it's pretty expensive. All items purchased from the in-game shop and or the PlayStation Store and or the Steam Store, as well as play data, will not be affected when changing your fighting ID and or home. Updated fighter ID and home flag will not be reflected in some portion of the game, such as previous play history, example battle log, replay data, etc. Please be aware that selecting a home has no bearing on matchmaking. So also we have finally a Grandmaster rank. The Grandmaster rank is now available for players who have leash points over 35,000. So yeah, they are adding an additional title, the Grandmaster rank title. But it seems like I think they need to add more titles, because there are players over 100,000 points. So that's a lot of points. So I think they should add more titles. Overall balancing. Increased active frames for regular throws from 2 frames to 3 frames. So this is like an universal nerf for all the characters, where they will have more active frames. So it seems like you will have less throw whiffs now. It seems like the throws will be more efficient for all characters now. Increased combo scaling for combos that include the trigger activation. Yeah, the damage will be less, a lot less now for all the characters when activating the trigger, which I think is pretty a decent balance, because some characters make a ridiculous amount of damage when using the B trigger. So I think it's a pretty decent universal change. Increased recovery for command throws. They're adding more recovery frames for all command throws for all the characters. Made revisions to the horde boxes for jumping attacks and to the normal moves that are primarily used as anti-airs. Changed properties of moves that change the position of the character, which may affect certain combos. I'm not sure what this exactly means, but I really hope they are fixing the horde box for the anti-air jabs. So now the jumping attacks can beat the anti-air jabs. That will be a pretty good change. Okay, so let's start now with the final balance changes for the characters. Let's start with Ryu. The shoulder throw increased stun from 120 to 150. Changed positioning after hit. This is more like an universal change for all the characters from I have seen. They are increasing the damage and the stun for the throws because you will not be able to throw loop in this in Arcade Edition. So they are adding more damage and more stun for all the characters. Also, the throw will now be, you will be, after the throw, the opponent will be further away than before. You will have less pressure after the throw, either mid-screen or in the corner. Standing light punch, normal and V-trigger. Change hitbox and hardbox. Change the collision boxes during the move. Increase the pushback on hit and block. So yeah, as I mentioned before, in the overall balancing, they're also changing the hitbox and hardbox for all the normals. So maybe they're fixing the anti-air jabs with the standing light punch. I'm not sure what this exactly means, but it can be the anti-air jab fix, the hardbox. Maybe the jumping attacks can beat now the anti-air jabs. Also says the collision boxes during the move, so it has to be that. Maybe they're fixing the anti-air jab finally. Also the increased pushback on hit and block. It seems like also an universal change because the frame traps now will be like less prominent. So it seems like Arcade Edition will be like less RAM. The game will be like less RAM, the less 50-50, less pressure. Since here standing medium punch, normal mid trigger, mind's eye, the V skill, change the collision boxes during the move. Crouching light punch, normal mid trigger, change the hard box. Also they're changing the hard box on the crouching light punch. Crouching light punch, change the hard box. Jumping fierce punch or heavy punch, and jumping heavy kick, or yes, heavy kick. Also they changed the hitbox and hardbox. Maybe they're adding more hitbox to the jumping attacks. Okay, his axe kick, which is his back heavy kick, increased startup from 8 frames to 9 frames. Increase the advantage frames when canceling the second hit into V trigger. Solar plexus strike, reduce the damage from 90 to 80. Well, this is kind of a nerf, but not quite like a big nerf. The Tatsumaki changed the collision boxes. Okay, in the EX Hadouken, he's definitely having also buffs in his EX Fireball. Reduce the total amount of frames from 44 to 42. It seems like the move will look like faster now. It will be more fast because we have less frames, but the recovery is still the same. So if it looks like more fast now, the move will be faster. The move will be faster now. Also, you can cancel the EX Hadouken into V trigger. That's a nice addition, a nice buff, actually. So maybe you will be able to juggle after the EX Hadouken into V trigger cancel. Maybe you can now juggle into another EX Hadouken or an EX Shoryuken if the opponent is the corner. So that's a pretty nice. They are adding more options for juggle combos for Ryu. So that's pretty nice. The V Hadouken, he's having more buffs also in his V trigger state for the fireballs. Total frame for the Hadouken is unified to 42 frames for all. Level 1, when charging the fireball, level 1 increased damage from 70 to 80. Level 1 decreased disadvantage on block from 6 frames to -6 frames to 2 frames. So that's a crazy buff. He's having more advantage now in his fireball game in V trigger. That's a pretty nice buff. Level 2 decreased disadvantage on block from -4 to 0. Wow, that's another buff for level 2 fireball. Level 2 also increased the damage from 90 to 100. Level 3 increased damage from 120 to 130. BEX Hadouken changed the total frames from 43 to 40. V Shoryuken eased the air combo count. BEX Shoryuken. Decreased the stun from 250 to 200. Eased the air combo count. The Jorange Sokurogeri added his donkey kick as a new move. Yeah, this is actually pretty insane buffs for his V-trigger fireballs. That's pretty, with the exception of small nerf on the damage on the EX Shoryuken, but he will be pretty strong now in his V-trigger state, V-trigger 1 state. On his V-trigger 2, I have seen recent footage that it will do a lot of damage also. So it seems like Ryu will be, I'm not sure if he will be top tier, but it seems like with all these changes, will be a pretty strong character now. So let's see what happens, guys, with Ryu. So Ken changes: increase forward walk speed. The knee badge that is his forward throw increase the damage to 110. Change the positioning after hit. As I mentioned before, the opponent will be now further away after the throw, either in mid-screen and in the corner. So the throw loop is gone, as you know, it's a universal nerf. Standing light punch, also an universal change. They changed the collision boxes, removed, increased pushback and hit and block, the same as Ryu. Change the hard box. Standing medium punch, increased advantage on block from +1 to +2. That's a pretty good buff. So we have more advantage now in his standing medium punch, more pressure. He can pressure more with his standing medium punch. Standing medium kick, change the pushback on hit, change the hard box. Standing heavy punch, Inazuma kick, heavy Tatsumaki in V-trigger, change the collision boxes during the move. Crouching light punch, jumping medium punch, change the hitbox and hard box. Crouching medium punch, jumping heavy kick, change the hard box. Jumping heavy punch, increase the startup from 8 frames to 9 frames. As you know, they're adding more frames to some normals, to some heavy normals on some characters. So yeah, they're adding more startup on the normal moves, on some heavy normals. Change the hitbox and hardbox also. Thunder kick, change so that the first active frame will not hit crouch opponents. Whoa, first active frame will not hit crouch opponents anymore, so that's kinda a nerf. Change the collision boxes during the move. Like Shoryuken or like Dragon Punch, change the collision boxes during the move. Damage for a regular version increase to 110 from 100, that's a buff. Damage from the V-trigger version also increase the damage to 130 from 120. Medium Dragon Punch, change the collision boxes during the move. Damage for a regular version increase from 120 to 130. Damage for the V-trigger version increase from 140 to 150. Heavy Shoryuken, change the collision boxes during the move. Damage for the regular version increase from 130 to 140. Damage for the V-trigger version increase from 150 to 160. So yeah, he's receiving a lot of damage buffs. We have, like, he will make a lot more damage now with his Shoryuken. Also, let's see, the EX Shoryuken also receiving buffs and damage. Damage for a regular version increased from 150 to 160, and the V-trigger version increased to 160 to 180. Change the hitboxes, changed so the opponent can perform a recovery if the move hits mid-air. So, well, that's kind of like a nerf, I think, because if he hits the opponent with the EX Shoryuken in the air, the opponent will recover in mid-air. He will not hit the ground, and then he will not fall off in the ground. So he will recover in mid-air. Well, that's kind of like a nerf for the EX Shoryuken, but I think it's a decent nerf because he's receiving a lot of damage buff. Medium Tatsumaki, normal and V-trigger. Normal if the first hit does not connect, increased the damage for the second and third hits from 20 to 40. Normal, if the first hit does not connect, increase the stun for the second and third hit for 50 to 75. V-trigger, if the first hit does not connect, increase the damage for the second and third hits from 30 to 50. V-trigger, if the first hit does not connect, increase the stun for the second and third hits from 50 to 75. Also, as you see, he's also having buffs for his Tatsumaki damage buff. He will make more damage also with his Tatsumaki, his Hurricane Kick in normal and V-trigger state. And also the heavy Tatsumaki reduce the active frames of the first hit by 1 frame. This is a nerf, less active frames for the heavy Tatsumaki on the first hit, so change so that the first active frame of the second hit will not hit grounded opponents. EX Airborne Tatsumaki in V-trigger increase the opponent's recovery on block by 3 frames. So this is a buff for his EX Tatsumaki. Okay, as for Chun-Li, as you know, the standing light punch, the universal nerf, change the hitbox, standing medium kick, change the horror box, change the collision boxes during the move, standing heavy punch, crushing light punch, crushing medium kick, all they change the horror box, the crushing light kick, the collision boxes during the move, jumping heavy kick, jumping heavy punch, also they change the hitbox and horror box, medium punch, forward or back medium punch, normal damage increased from 60 to 65. In V-trigger also the damage increased from 70 to 75, so they buff Chun-Li's back and forward. Her Joku Senkyaku, that is her forward heavy kick, can trigger a crush counter. This is a pretty good buff because this move is actually used for MIDI setups. So now with the crush counter addition, it seems like you will get more damage after the MIDI setup in crush counter, so you can continue the combo. It's definitely a good buff, a pretty good buff, making this move now a crush counter. Okay, her Tenku Kyaku, which is her back heavy kick, change the horror box, they increase the damage from 70 to 80, change so that it can hit opponents who are behind Chun-Li. Wow! So yeah, it's a pretty nice buff. She's receiving now in this version a lot of buffs, so she will be definitely strong again. V-trigger, they extended the time of her V-trigger. The light and medium airborne Hyakuretsu Kyaku, which is here her lightning kicks, advantage on hit increased from 3 frames to 4 frames. Also the light spinning bird kick, normal damage increased from 100 to 110. The trigger damage increased from 110 to 120. Medium spinning bird kick, also they increase the damage on normal and V-trigger, normal 110 to 120 to 130, and V-trigger 130 to 140. And also she's getting the heavy spinning bird kick damage buff as well, from normal 140 to 150, and in V-trigger from 150 to 160. So yeah, she got a lot of buffs, so she will be definitely a strong character, a very strong character, like in season 1 again. So pretty good for her, man. Cammy, her Jiro Clipper, her forward throw, they reduced the stun from 200 to 150. They increase also the damage on her back throw, the Delta through, from 130 to 140. The next spiral, which is her air throw damage, they increase their damage from 130 to 150. So yeah, they increase the damage on her throw and reduce the stun. So the standing light punch, the universal change, they change the hitbox, the collision boxes, the pushback on block and hit, and they change the startup from 4 frames to 3 frames for the rapid cancel version. Well, it seems like will be a 3 frame jab now her standing light punch. So that's definitely a buff, a ridiculous buff for her standing light punch now. The standing medium kick, the recovery increased from 13 frames to 15 frames. No change in advantage and disadvantage. So standing heavy kick increased the advantage on hit from 2 frames to 4 frames. Change the collision boxes during the move. Change the hurt box and change so that it can hit the opponents who are behind Cammy. So seems like a lot of characters are receiving this buff, which they can hit opponents who are trying to cross up you. Also, the crushing light punch changed the hitbox and hurtbox, increased the pushback on hit and block. The rapid cancelled version has a larger pushback distance than the regular. So it seems like her pressure gain will be like less prominent. So it was very hard to deal with. Her pressure gain is right now pretty insane, to be honest. So now you will have like she will have less pressure because of the universal nerf of the pushbacks on the normals on hit and block. So yeah, crushing heavy punch and crushing heavy kick changed the horde box. Jumping medium punch and jumping heavy punch and jumping heavy kick, and the leaf upper changed also the hitbox and horde box as well. Quick spin knuckle, her B skill advantage on hit increased from 6 frames to 7 frames. That's a crazy buff. Strike back, her B reversal, disadvantage on block changed from 2 frames to 4 frames. That's well, I think that's a pretty decent nerf for her B reversal, because actually her B reversal was just too damn good. I mean, now I think it seems like it's punishable now for all the characters that have 3 frames, the 3 frame jab. So I think it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. Okay, her V trigger extended the V timer active duration, increased the amount of gauge each V trigger move uses. Okay, so each V trigger move now will drain more gauge now. It will drain more her V trigger. So that's also a nerf for her V trigger. Nash. Let's see what Nash got for Kedation. His Dragon Suplex damage increased from 120 to 130. Target down damage increased from 130 to 140. Air Jack, his air throw damage, and also they increased the damage from 130 to 140. They buffed all his throws. Standing medium kick increased active frame from 3 frames to 4 frames. So this is a pretty buff for his standing medium kick. Also his standing heavy kick, they changed the hitbox and the hurtbox. The damage increased from 80 to 90. Standing light punch and crouching light punch, jumping heavy kick, they changed the hurtbox. They changed the hurtbox and hitbox as well for the crouching medium punch and jumping heavy punch. The crouching medium kick reduced the hitbox, increased the recovery from 15 frames to 17 frames. So it seems like the recovery is lower now, but no changes. It seems like a slower animation, but no changes on advantage and disadvantage. Spinning back knuckle changed the hitbox. The bullet combination changed the status on hit, increased the V gauge meter gain on hit. EX Sonic Boom changed so that the strength of the additional button pressed will control the speed of the second Sonic Boom. Okay, so it seems like the EX Sonic Boom will have strength properties depending on what button you use. If you use the light attack, the speed will be less than if you use a medium or heavy EX Sonic Boom on the second Sonic Boom. So it seems like this will be a pretty good buff, because so using, for example, the light EX Sonic Boom, the second Sonic Boom with the light version, you will kind of have more pressure because it's slower. So you will gain more pressure now using the EX Sonic Boom, which is a pretty good buff for him. So that's pretty nice. EX Sonic Sight, Judgment Saber, Ease the Earth combo count. Okay, that's all for this video, guys. I will be making another video with the rest of the characters discussing the final balance changes, because actually there's a lot of information. I don't want to make a really long video with all the characters. I prefer doing 2 or 3 videos with all the balance changes for all the characters. So well, that's all for this video, guys. That's all for today. I'm DeadAce. Don't forget to subscribe, and see you in the next one.